This is the Welcome to Humanity podcast with thought leader and transformative psychiatrist, Dr. Fred Moss. This show focuses on the betterment of humanity on a global scale. Each episode will leave you enlightened, inspired, and ready to make an impact in your world. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your life. Welcome to humanity. Here's Dr. Fred.
We have another surprise guest today, and it's a surprise not really like a surprise guest, like who do we have? Well, maybe that is what it is, but it's somebody who I've never met before. So Cynthia Ruiz is Ruiz is more than likely how it gets pronounced, is our guest today, and I can't wait to have a conversation, an interview, a showcase, the capacity to really tap on this woman's spectacular place in the world, really, in between all the people who came before her and all the people who are coming after her. I have the opportunity today to introduce you to this extraordinary human being. And I have access to a little bit of a bio, and I have access to our mutual friend, Roselle, and I don't have much more access, but we had a brief conversation just before the show started, and Cynthia said just a couple things. She told me that she meditated on this and then was kind of given a message, a channel on what this conversation was likely to needed to be about or was likely to be about. And just with that, I was like, well, let's get this party started. Let's really get going. Let's take a look at what we're going to find. Cynthia's all game, and here we are, a minute and a half into the show, and I finally get to introduce you to our special guest star today, Cynthia Ruiz. So, Cynthia, welcome to the Welcome to Humanity podcast.
Well, hello, Dr. Fred. And I just want to say that it's truly an honor to be here with you. And thank you for all the amazing work that you do.
Well, thank you. Each and every one of us is really dealing with something, right? No matter whether we're tackling some of the big problems in the world or maybe even the tiny ones, we all face challenges. Now, I've been a psychiatrist for many years, and I've worked with all kinds of people from all walks of life. I've worked with more people than I can really count, from various backgrounds, dealing with more issues than you can imagine, of all sizes and shapes. So naturally, over time, I've developed a number of ways to assist others in gaining a new sense of freedom and empowerment. Now, I'm pulling back the curtain on one of those methodologies, and I'm going public, revealing the process and associated mindset that contributed to using this particular method with maximum effectiveness. It's all laid out in my new book called Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. You can pick this book up on Amazon.com in either Kindle or paperback format. And as a listener to the Welcome to Humanity podcast, I'd like to offer you a completely free copy in audiobook format. Just go to welcometohumanity.net/creative and download your free audiobook copy of Creative 8 today. I really look forward to hearing about your Creative 8 breakthrough. Now, let's get back to this amazing conversation. Welcome to humanity. Thank you. And it's kind of a labor, I could say it's a labor of love. I could give it some sort of ribbon, but really what it is each and every day, I seem to take steps forward, or at least intending to take steps forward to become aligned with why I was put here on the planet. What's the point? Like, what is really being called on for me? What are the gifts that I have, the blessings, the missings, the responding to core wounds? What's here for me? And then I just kind of take the next step in the world, and it kind of looks like I'm up to stuff. But in reality, I'm just taking one step at a time and following something called alignment, something called my own intention, or the created person I am becoming that I get to live as now. And so that's me. And if you've listened to any of the podcasts, I got this special question I ask people. And it's just one question. It's easy. It's a 9-letter question. And the question really is just, who are you? And that's what's here for you, Cynthia. Who are you, really?
Well, I am multidimensional like we all are. I am an author. I'm a professor. I am a mother. I'm an executive coach. And I am just a truly blessed human being. I come from dual backgrounds. I live in Los Angeles, and I am half Mexican from my dad's side. My grandparents came to the United States from Mexico 100 years ago. And then on my mom's side, I'm Native American Cherokee, and Cherokee Nation is actually in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. I'm a Cherokee citizen. And so, what I like to say is, I have the best of both worlds. From my Latina side, I get my passion for life and love for music and dance. And from my Native American side, I get my spirituality and love for Mother Earth. And so, what drew me to your podcast, Welcome to Humanity, with my Cherokee beliefs, we are taught as Cherokees that we are all connected, not only to each other, but everything that's ever been, present, and everything that ever will be. So when you really look at humanity and you really live life in its simplest terms, you realize that we're all connected. And having that understanding really helps you live your life with integrity. You know, as Cherokee leaders, we're taught to take in consideration 7 generations behind us, which are our ancestors, and 7 generations in the future. So we have a very holistic view of the world. And so that's why I think, speaking on Welcome to Humanity is important, because some of the simplest things in life, are really valuable. We complicate, right now life has been complicated. It's been complicated by the pandemic, right? So
Hmm.
sometimes if you just keep it simple and think about what really is important, which the pandemic taught us, sometimes going back to the ancestors' lessons. And so I actually have a book called Cherokee Wisdom, 12 Lessons for Becoming a Powerful Leader. I'm not going to take credit. It's not original content. It's actually lessons that I got from my ancestors. This is the second edition. And the reason I did a second edition is because in Cherokee values, we're taught that everything should be in harmony and balance. So in the second edition, I brought in a male co-author to balance out the perspective, a gentleman by the name of Abraham Bearpaw. And I want to add here that my Cherokee name is Lion Mother. And it's a very important name because, with the lion or the lioness in my case, the lioness sits above the community and watches it and cares for the community. And then mother in the Cherokee culture is very important because we were a matriarchal society. So women play a significant role. So Abraham Bearpaw and myself, Cynthia, Lion Mother, came together and we launched our book last year. We just had our 1 year anniversary, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own. But we're sharing 12 lessons, and it's really our cultural values. And most cultures have the same values, have integrity, work together, persevere. But one thing I think a lot of leaders miss in this country is humility. And
Mm.
I'm here to say you can be humble and confident at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Hmm.
So, in a nutshell, that's who I am. That's what I do. I love life. I just really am very passionate about helping others become their true, authentic self so they can live their best life ever.
Beautiful. And it really just oozes from your pores. Is there something about, what I'm hearing now is almost a matter of fact nature of your Cherokee ancestry and the Cherokee legacy that you're committed to. But more than that, even if there's such thing as more than that, or another approach, including your Latino background, your human background, that like who you get to be in the face of now knowing yourself, not only as Lion Mother, which is a beautiful name and one that I guess isn't, doesn't come lightly. It's a name that carries, what is it? It's fair to say a burden, or is it maybe even better, like an accountability, a responsibility?
Responsibility is what I like to say. It comes with responsibility. And I think the reason I am who I am today is because I've had a lot of challenges in life. I mean, as we all have, right? Just to share a little bit about my story, when I was 17 years old, I was violently raped. And so I was sexually traumatized. And that was a whole process that led me down my spiritual path. And so, with my spiritual journey, there's 3 things I do every single day. First of all, when I first wake up in the morning, I do my gratitude list. What am I grateful for? Well, I live in the city of Los Angeles. We're the homeless capital of the world. So I'm grateful to have a bed to sleep in, a house, to be surrounded by love. So I start with gratitude, which sets the tone of my day. And then throughout the day, the other two things I do is I pray and meditate. And I like to say that prayer is talking to the Creator and meditating is listening. So having that spiritual practice in my life really grounds me and helps me move forward each and every day. And there's many, many other challenges that I've gone through in my life. But what I like to say is that I'm actually grateful for all the challenges because that makes me the strong woman who I am today. I also, for the city of Los Angeles, I'm president of the city's pension board. So I oversee $22 billion worth of investments. So when I say I'm multidimensional, not only career wise, but in many, many other aspects. So I just feel grateful every day to be of service to mankind.
Wow.
I know that's a lot.
Well, it is. And look, I'm not overwhelmed. It isn't really that, but I'm stuck with using the English language to respond to what you say. And, there's something like, all right, you really do have your tentacles in so many important and like heavily contributing areas of what it means to be a human. And now I'm listening more, what it means to be an Angelino or what it means to be a fundraiser or what it means to be a leader. And, we look at your bio and there's about, I don't know, like 10 more things you could say that are just in your bio. And then, we really just start looking at how does one carry off being so multidimensional, seeing yourself as such. And then I'm really tempted to bring back this word that you were like, what do leaders have? What does the optimal leader have that our present leaders maybe are short on? And the word was humility. So I'm going to ask you, how is it that one who, sporting around couple, I don't know, did you say $22 billion?
Yes, I did. Billion with a B.
Yeah. That's a fair amount of jack, Cynthia, for anybody. There's nobody who's like, yeah, I lost 22 billion yesterday, no problem. There's no company that would be able to survive that. So we're really talking about a massive amount of money, a massive amount of impact. The homeless in Los Angeles, yeah, there's some attention that's needed and due there right now in this lifetime. And that's not all you're up to, but even if it was, it would be a full life. And then you didn't even mention, some of the things you said on the front end, being a mother and, being a leader, being so many different arenas. Does humility arise from prayer and meditation, or where does yours arise from? Or maybe from your legacy or upbringing? I'm curious where you think your humility stems from.
Well, it really does stem from my Cherokee culture because being humble means that I'm no better than anyone else. And it's exactly, Dr. Fred, what you talk about humanity. We're all part of humanity. And just because I have certain job titles in front of my name does not make me better than the next person. So it's everything I do, I always try to do my best. If I'm sitting as president of the pension board, I'm trying to do my best. If I am, having a conversation with my son, I try to be the best mom. So I'm always trying to be the best I can do in everything I do. But again, those are titles. It doesn't make me better than the next person. And when we talk about leadership, because I'm a professor, I teach in a master's degree program, I teach leadership. And what I tell the students is that there's no one definition of leadership. There's 60,000 books written on leadership. And if it was a one size fits all, we wouldn't have 60,000 books. But when I really break it down in its simplest terms, leadership is the ability to influence others. And guess what? We all have the ability to influence others, good or bad. If you're a parent, you influence others. If you're involved in the community, you influence others. So it's really having that awareness of how you are influencing others. And so I feel like leadership comes with a responsibility to make sure that you're influencing others in a positive way.
Now, that's not always so easy. What you think is a positive way might not be what those who you think you are leading think is a positive way, for instance. Or you have a certain way of being, or you represent a certain stand, or maybe you're representing a certain direction or the possibility of representing a certain outcome, maybe, I don't know, a reconciliation or a rebirth or a growth. And there might be folks who, flat out disagree with you or are not interested in following that path. And what does a leader do when there's contrary opinion, when there's concerns of other relevant parties that fall adversarial to what your stand is?
Right. Well, let me just say that leadership is not a popularity contest.
I see.
At one point in my career, I was in charge of the Public Works Department for the city of Los Angeles, which means I was in charge of 6,000 people and just under $1 billion a year budget. And so one of my friends told me, he goes, Cynthia, do you realize that statistically 10% of the people are not going to like you? And I'm like, oh my God, that means 600 people aren't going to like me. And then I had to step back and said, it's not a popularity contest. So with my leadership, I developed what I call value driven leadership. If I make decisions based on my core values, I'll never make a bad decision for me. And my core values are integrity, honesty, what's the greater good for the community. And so maybe not everybody's going to be happy, but I also have a democratic style. I'd go around the room and ask everybody what they thought, but I wasn't afraid to make decisions after getting everybody's input. And of course, there's going to be some people that are not happy with it, but if I felt I did the best I could in making that decision, then I was comfortable with it. And I wasn't worried about the naysayer. Because let's face it, Dr. Fred, there's a lot of haters out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the haters are usually hating on themselves because
Mm-hmm.
they're not happy. And when you know this, that they're not happy with something in their own lives. So they're projecting onto others.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm secure in who I am. If I make decisions based on my core values, I'm comfortable with those decisions. Now, I'm not saying that every single decision I've ever made in my life is perfect, but I make decisions. And then if it doesn't work out, I'm not afraid to change courses. Sometimes people get stuck with their decisions and they own it and they don't want to move. So you got to go with the flow. It goes back to, harmony and balance. And if I'm wrong, I'm okay to admit it, say, you know what? I thought it was the best decision. It was with the information I had. There's new information. So let's go in another direction.
Mm-hmm.
So leadership is really, being authentic, letting people know that you're authentic, leading by example because people watch you. Even if you don't know people are watching you, they are. A quick example, a couple years ago, I went to go to a fast food restaurant, El Pollo Loco, to get a salad for dinner. And I was on my phone, not paying attention. There was a gentleman in front of me, and he looked a little disheveled. He may have been homeless. He was paying with change, and he came up short. So I didn't even think anything. I reached in my purse, put a few dollars down. What I had not realized behind me in line was a mother and a little girl that looked about 8 years old. She saw what I did, so she asked her mother for some money and went up to the man and said, here, I hope this can help you so you can eat tonight. And then we all kind of looked at each other and had a moment because I realized my actions influenced this young woman and I didn't even see her. I didn't even know she was there.
Mm-hmm.
So leading by example, by your behavior and not only what you say is so important because the young people are watching.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's just incredible. And sometimes it isn't that overt, right? Sometimes they don't even have to be in line behind you and they don't even have to see you on TV or the news and they don't have to come to your keynote or they don't have to follow you on Instagram to be able to watch you. Like they can watch you through your act, through the examples you're leading by, through the authenticity or through your influence on others. Like they can watch you and do watch you. Do you live as if each and every second you're being watched? In other words, that every second matters.
Well, I don't live my life like paranoid, like people are watching me. What
I
I
understand.
What I do live my life is through the lens of integrity. And to me, integrity means doing the right thing even when no one else is looking. Because sometimes it's easy to do the right thing if you know other people are watching. But I believe that since we are all connected to the creator, I use the term creator, I say God, I say universal consciousness. To me, it doesn't matter what term you use, but we all are connected to a power that's greater than all of us. And so
Mhm.
if you live from that understanding and live through that lens, then you understand that, you're living your life with integrity and authenticity. It doesn't matter who's watching because I'm comfortable with the way I'm living my life. Now I'm not going to say, that I'm perfect because no one is. And like I shared, I've had many struggles. I came from a divorced family. My parents, just had a tumultuous relationship. So I've had a lot of adversity, but that adversity, all those challenges, I turned into lessons. And so all those lessons I've learned, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I've had struggles, but it made me the strong woman that I am today. So I don't regret any of them.
Mhm.
I'm actually, Dr. Fred, a PhD dropout. So when I was accepted to a PhD program, I was married, had a young child, just started my own business, which was requiring that I work 7 days a week. And I didn't have enough time, so I had to make a decision. And as women, a lot of times we get put in a decision like, what are we going to do? So I chose my family and my business. Well, I'm proud to say that my son is now grown. He's a fabulous man. He is the head stylist for Nickelodeon. And at that time, the business I just started, I was able to turn it into $1 million a year business. Now, I don't have a PhD, I have a master's, but I like to say I now have a PhD in life because I've had so many life
Yeah,
experiences.
it sounds like it. You really you really have lived multiple lives. And you had mentioned that you would like to speak a little bit about the impact even more of your Cherokee heritage on how you walk through the world. Or maybe you can rephrase it to more represent exactly what you were pointing to prior to beginning our conversation. Talk to us a little bit about where does that all fit in with your son and with all the impact and the leadership and all the things that you're doing for the less fortunate or the PhD in life that you have acquired. How does Cherokee Nation interface with that?
Well, in many different ways. And first of all, like I mentioned, in Cherokee values, we believe in harmony and balance. And harmony and balance not only with the world around us, but with each other, with men and women. I do a lot of female empowerment seminars and really work with a lot of women. And it's not because I'm anti men, it's because I'm trying to create that balance. We've been in a patriarchal society for so long where the men have been in control. So as the women rise, it creates that balance. So really working with women, disenfranchised, people of color, I'm very passionate about that. I'm also very passionate, as I mentioned in Cherokee Wisdom, we look at 7 generations in the future. So over the last year, I've been called to really work with the young people. So I developed for Cherokee Nation a Gen Z leadership program. Now, Gen Z is age 15 to 25, and I'm working with these young people, and I did 6 leadership lessons. But because it's Gen Z, we did it by Zoom, we did it virtually. It was 15-minute segments. I knew they weren't going to sit there for an hour or 2 hours, so I had to make it quick. And as a result, we had 3,200 young people ages 15 to 25 participate in this leadership program, and they want more. So it's about instilling values in these young people. These young people are hungry. They're hungry for knowledge. They're hungry to help the environment. They're really hungry to really work on the causes that they feel important to them. And a lot of them are passionate about gun control. They're, like I said, passionate about the environment. There's so many, you know, issues that are important to them. So they just need some guidance. So
Mhm.
every morning when I wake up, after I do my gratitude list, I ask the creator, where can I be of service today? I never know how I'm going to be of service. Recently, I actually spoke to a young Girl Scout group about democracy, and that was fun, hanging out with these young girls. So it's just every day I live my life through being of service.
And where can you be of service? How does this spread when you're speaking with 3,200 young people who are, hopefully, God willing, the future of this planet and the future of this country or the future of our communities? How does this stuff wash off you onto them? What part of the learning process has them discover these things for themselves rather than simply be astonished or, entertained by all the many things you're doing with your life as a leader?
Well, the first thing is they just get inspired because they haven't always seen a Latina Native American woman that has the level of responsibility that I do, and I do teach them to be respectful, to cooperate with others, to persevere, to be responsible, to be patient, all the 12 lessons of attribute that I talk about in the book. Again, this is not my original content. This comes from the Cherokee Nation. And how do I know this? Because we have words in Cherokee for all these attributes of leadership, and I originally got it from Cherokee Nation. So by giving them lessons and giving them little stories that resonates, they just get so inspired. So we did an evaluation of the Gen Z leadership program, and you'll appreciate this. 98% of Gen Z either loved it or liked the program.
Wow.
At that age, it's hard to get, 15 to 25, that's a tough crowd, right?
Yeah.
98% liked it or loved it, and only 2% said it was okay. Nobody hated it. So
Yeah.
to me, I was like, that was a big accomplishment.
Yeah. And you had, did you say it was like 15 or 16-minute sessions? Is that what you said? Are the meetings?
So what I did is I did 15-minute Zoom sessions, and then at that point they could leave, and then I stuck around for another 15 minutes to answer questions, and they all stayed asking questions. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them, they were just still coming out of COVID, so a lot of them were feeling a little lonely. They were feeling, disconnected, and so they just wanted to, connect with others, which was
Mm-hmm.
exciting.
And was this people mostly from Southern California, or was it people from around the world or the country, or where did the people come from?
All over the country. I think
Right.
I was the only one from Southern California because,
Wow.
like I said, Cherokee Nation is in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. So these are mostly college students from all over the United States. And so I asked them, these students, connect with me on LinkedIn, and they did. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of them did. So a lot of them, I get emails from them. So it just, they wanted more. So I'm going to do a second version of that, not so much leadership, but talking about Cherokee history and talking about the culture and Cherokee spirituality. Unfortunately, with the Cherokee, like many other tribes, our spirituality kind of got repressed because in Oklahoma, from the early 1900s until the early 1970s, it was outlawed. We could not perform our traditional ceremonies or you'd go to jail.
Hmm.
Our traditional ceremony is called a stomp dance, and people could not participate in stomp dance or they went to jail. So it got repressed, but there's a big resurgence of the spirituality because, the young people want to feel connected. I mean, who doesn't want to feel connected,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm. What happened to bring it back to life, and what is the essence of the ceremony that was outlawed?
So the essence of the ceremony was our stomp dance is just coming together. And again, the dance itself, because we believe in harmony and balance, it's man, woman, man, woman, man, woman. And then we dance around a fire. And it's really just celebrating life and celebrating the creator and the connection to each other. But I don't know why people found that so scary,
Hmm.
but they,
Yeah.
outlawed it. But it was just a whole part of, the way that in my opinion, the Native Americans in the United States went through nothing but less than genocide. Nobody
Yeah.
says it, but
No.
that's what it was. And, each tribe, there's over 300 federally recognized tribes in the United States. The Cherokee is the largest with 400,000 registered citizens. But, our culture had gotten stripped from us, our land, got taken away. It was a whole process. And I feel like the young people want to feel connected again.
Now you're really talking on something here that I think I have to double back on. And, we start looking at genocide and really well, it's almost the overt, but it's at least a covert effort to erase the indigenous tribes in this country, or to at least quiet them down, or to relegate them to unseen corners, and to strip them of integrity and strip them of their own authenticity, strip you of, what matters to you. And nevertheless, there's sort of like, wow, you're still here. Not only are you still here, you're still here in force. Not only are you still here in force, you just got 3,200 teenagers to join you to learn how to live life, to take on with hunger how to live an authentic, genuine life of integrity. And, there's something amazing about in the face of inspiration, life does go on. There's like, nice try with genocide, but we're still here. Or yes, and we're still here, and now we're rebuilding. It's time. The time is now. And it's on your shoulders that some of this is happening. So as Mother Lion or Lion Mother, yeah,
Mhm.
you're looked to be the lioness, like to be a front player of that. Am I right? And if I'm not right, if you can just kind of refine it, what does Lion Mother, what's her role as Lion Mother, and what kind of special space do you occupy so that people flock when you speak or when you show up or when you're listening, when you're there to bring harmony and balance? What is it about Lion Mother that has you being comfortable with that responsibility?
Well, Dr. Fred, first, I just got my Cherokee name last year.
But haven't you had it even before you had it? I mean, isn't it?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, in the work that I do, I am just a humble servant to the Creator. I don't take credit for anything I do because it's really, I believe that the Creator's working through me. The ancestors are working through me. I just happen to be an open vehicle that, the ancestors are working through. So I am very grateful to that. So I really don't take credit for any of this other than showing up and being open. And like today, I mean, I got invited to be a part of your show. Like you mentioned in the beginning, we didn't know each other. I just intuitively felt, I just liked the word humanity. And so I said, I'm going to do it. And I obviously, we go through life through, I use my intuition a lot, but it's being able to tap into that. I do a lot of ceremony, based on my native background. I do full moon ceremony. We just did a ceremony for the summer solstice. So if you look at nature and Mother Earth, everything runs in cycles. The moon cycles, the seasons. There's a cycle to everything. So it's about, even life has its cycles. My mom just made her transition last month. So
Mm.
life is a cycle. So if you kind of get into that cycle or understanding that everything runs in cycles, so I believe that the point I'm at in my life right now is to just do as much as I can, and get out there and help as many people as I can. Because, like I started, we're all connected. And the more we each do, the better this world's going to be. Because I
Hmm.
believe we all have a responsibility to humanity. And I believe that right now the world is going through a major shift. And a lot of that is as women are coming into their power. I keep talking about Cherokee, but we had one female principal chief. Her name, and I know a lot of people react to the name, her name was Wilma Mankiller. And her leadership style, because women do lead differently than men. I'm not judging either one, it's just different. And so, under her guidance, we actually brought in gaming into the Cherokee Nation. And at first, she was a little bit resistant because, there was a perception that gaming and casinos, brought a bad element. So finally, she says, we'll allow gaming under one condition, that all the money goes to community benefit. So the Cherokee Nation now owns 10 casinos, has just under $1 billion a year budget. But with that money, we build hospitals, schools. I'm proud to say that we just built the first ever Native American medical school, and we're going to graduate the first class of doctors next year. So, having the female perspective and helping women rise, it just brings a different type of leadership. And again, I'm not judging. We all know from way back when men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And with being a professor, I teach, and this is not my theory, but they say that women lead from social power and men lead from individual power.
Hmm.
Again, there's no judgment. It
Yeah.
just is different. So to me, the more we have women coming in leadership roles and teaching people that we really have to look out for the greater good of everyone, that benefits humanity.
Hmm. Cynthia, I'm going to ask a question here that just arose for me, and I'm curious about what you have to say about this. As I empathize or work to empathize how you are looking at the world, the white man, and I say that in two, both non-indigenous and male, are potentially pretty serious arch enemies here. Pretty serious threatening resources. Okay, here's my deepest question, which is how does one reconcile so that you're working for the good of the white man too, not just get his ass out of here so we can have our land back or have our freedom back or have our ceremonies back, have our spirituality back? Not just that. It's not a fighting culture. It sounds like you're completely interested in the good, not only of all of humanity, but of all of life, and not only of all life, life and non life, all things, I think is how you put it.
Yeah, and so I don't see it as a white male problem.
Okay.
What I see it is it's kind of the ideas, the antiquated ideas that some people are holding on to. So there's a lot of great white men out there that I work with all the time. So it's creating that paradigm shift to a new way of the world, and the people that are have benefit from the old paradigm hang on to that. And I'll give you an example because I don't see anybody as an enemy. And I talked about being sexually traumatized,
Yeah.
and I've written 6 books, and one of them was I partnered with people about healing from sexual trauma. So when we launched that book, we created a big prayer circle. So we prayed for, and this was specific to the Latino community because it's an epidemic in the Latino community. We prayed for the entire Latino community. We prayed for anybody that had been sexually traumatized, and this was the clincher. People almost fell off their seats. We prayed for the people that caused the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, why in the heck would you do that? I said, because they are broken. They would not have caused the trauma if they were healthy, whole, and complete. So they need our prayers too.
Mm-hmm.
And we were working towards getting people out of the victim state and towards their healing. And a lot of people couldn't understand when I said we're going to pray for the people that caused the trauma, because they're like, no, you can't pray for them. They need to be in jail and blah, blah. And I said, no, many of them, if you look at their individual history, have been traumatized themselves in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, it's not about us against them. It's about everybody's role in the sexual trauma and how do we create that shift to healing so the community heals.
Mm-hmm. Very, very beautiful. Thank you. And I really support what you're saying. And, in theory, I think most people would say, yeah, that sounds right, except for the real haters, right? The people who have been really, really vindictive or like revengeful.
It just means that they haven't worked on their healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the healing process is forgiveness.
Yep.
Forgiveness is a powerful tool. You know that, Dr. Fred.
Yeah.
And in healing from sexual trauma, there's several pieces of forgiveness. It's not just only about forgiving the perpetrator or maybe the people you felt should have protected you. It's about self forgiveness. That's really when everything shifted for me, when I forgave myself, because somehow in my mind, I thought that I brought that upon myself. So I had to forgive myself and release shame and guilt to really heal.
Well, this forgiveness or giving as before is so critical, and it's an inside job. Am I right? When people do you wrong and you hold them, you're resentful of them, and then they take up space in your head, you forgive them to open up that space and allow you to have access to what matters to you. Is that your understanding of forgiveness as well?
Absolutely. I mean, forgiveness, and I'll give you a quick example. I'm being very vulnerable here. So I mentioned my mom passed away recently.
Yes. Condolences. I got that.
My mom and I had a complicated relationship. And so, she did not really treat me with love and respect and dignity for most of my life. It wasn't until she got dementia she completely changed.
Hmm.
So about a year ago, I actually wrote down, all these experiences that I had as a young child and a woman, and I forgave her. Now, she wasn't asking for my forgiveness. She had dementia. She didn't remember half the stuff. But I had to release that and forgive her for my benefit. So when she did make her transition, I didn't have any emotional attachment or unresolved issues, which made it a lot easier for me to grieve her transition.
Hmm.
So forgiveness is so powerful.
That's so cool. There's something so beautiful about it. It's like if you can forgive that, and I just want to say you're resonating with me today. I have had a pretty spiritually infused day, seemingly more spiritually infused than average, though you and I know each and every moment is maximally spiritually infused. And sometimes I'm aware of it and sometimes I'm not. But earlier today, I had an opportunity to forgive my family.
Mm.
And I guess I'm making myself vulnerable here as well. But, I kind of had an intention that I was going to follow up on some things that, are presently sort of maybe hurdles or thorns or not necessarily resolved issues in my sibling. And instead, what I did is really get that I wasn't going to forgive them for their sake so that they can live a life. It would really be forgiving them or forgiving me with them or forget the whole thing, like forgiving the pain that got produced as a way of freeing myself to be the man I know myself to be or the man I'm, creating for myself. And this process is now a little bit more than half a day old, at least in this newest form. And with you saying that, I'm really feeling like, well, that's what I was talking about this morning with my constellation is the opportunity to forgive to create a life that is open for me to grow, spread my wings, pour it back, be a contribution in a way that I'm urgently responsible for producing at some level. This is people count on me to be able to do this. This is why I've lived life to this point. And the more I have clutter in my head based on not forgiving somebody, the less likely I am to pursue the things that really matter.
Well, Dr. Fred, I am proud of you. I am so proud of you. And I couldn't agree more. Forgiveness is freedom. And the more you forgive and the more you let all that stuff go, the happier you become and the freer you become. And let's make no mistake about it. Forgiveness is not an easy process. It's painful, and that's why most people don't do the work because it is painful. But once you get to the other side of forgiveness, that's when you find that deep joy and that unconditional love and the happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't care who you are, where you were raised, how much money you have, everybody has emotional baggage.
Mm.
And the emotional baggage shows up in a lot of different ways: anger, resentment, guilt, shame, insecurities. And until you let all that stuff go through a lot of processes, and forgiveness is one of them, then you become free. And who doesn't want to live a free, happy life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question and a little bit rhetorical. It sounds like, everybody should want to live a free and happy life. But if you look around, you see people who, even though a free and happy life is only just moments away, if they would just do this or stop doing that, or be this or stop being that, they actually choose to live a miserable life of, slavery to their own opinions or their own regrets or their own resentments or their own disempowering context. And those people, it sometimes appears, are actually committed to living a non-free, non-powerful life, at least for the time being, almost like they don't deserve any better. Maybe they don't know or believe that they deserve to have a life that's happy or a life that's a massive contribution.
Absolutely. And maybe that's one of their issues. They don't feel worthy. Somewhere in their life, they owned it, that they don't feel worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in their family told them, or some society told them. And that feeling of unworthiness really affects a lot of people. And some people are just stuck. And, what I do for people like that, I just pray. I pray that they're open to their healing and they're open to releasing their emotional baggage. And I don't judge it.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Well, it's interesting because we never knew where this conversation was going to go today, did we?
No, and that's the fun of just Welcome to Humanity podcast, which is we both have the capacity to listen closely to what's being said or called for, and then gracefully just jump on that cloud and see where it takes us. So I really appreciate the flow of the conversation as you've designed it. It almost seems like maybe we haven't paid enough attention to the other half of your upbringing, the Latino Mexican half of your upbringing, and the impact that makes on you. So, look, the impact that the Cherokee Nation and Cherokee wisdom is made on you is overwhelming and totally inspiring. But when you mentioned where you come from, you split it in two, and it sounds like there's at least the same level or a similar level of large impact from the other half of your legacy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, like I said, from being Latina, I get my passion for life. And, Latinos are known for being very passionate people. But, sometimes people think Latinas have tempers and they're over dramatic. And to me, I feel like I'm Latina, but I'm grounded. I feel like I've, done a lot of work in my life. I have to admit, I haven't necessarily gone through therapy per se, but I've done a lot of self help and work on myself. And that's where I feel like I live in a Latino community. And in Latino community, the women are really thriving right now. And we're breaking away from that old paradigm of the macho Latino men.
Yeah.
And women are being supportive of each other, and it's a new day. And so, but to me, it's a new day, it's a new world. I know we're coming out of a lot of darkness, and when I talk about darkness, I talk about obviously the obvious, a pandemic, but I also feel like the political world, and I'm not going to talk politics, but the political world, there's been a lot of darkness and heaviness. And over the last 4 years in the United States anyway, there's been a rise of hate crimes. And for anybody that's not part of what's considered the establishment. But I think sometimes you have to expose things to work through them and move forward. And there's been, especially for Latinos, with the whole immigration issue and the way Latinos have been treated, it's been tough. But again, for me, I see opportunity there. And that's why I also do a lot of work with young Latino women and mentoring them. Like I mentioned, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't have mentors. So now I turn around and give back and try to make it easier for these young women that are young Latinas that are coming up. So again, I just am grateful that I have had the ability to impact so many lives, because that's where I get my most joy. I mean, I'm very blessed that I'm successful financially and have done all that. But when I get an email from somebody that says, I heard you speak, 2 years ago and it changed my life, that's where I get the real rewards.
Right. That's a priceless experience, I'm sure. What about your family? I think mother was one of the things you threw in early on is really important to you. How did you fit family into all of it?
Well, I had mentioned that I was sexually traumatized. What ended up happening when I went to college is that I didn't feel safe because of the severity of the situation. So I ended up basically kind of marrying the first guy that came along, a Mexican, and I found myself in a physically abusive relationship. So I was running away from the sexual trauma only to find myself in a situation where I was being physically abused. And I was married for 10 years, and I stayed in that relationship, and I didn't get out of that relationship until it happened. The physical abuse happened in front of my son. He was 7 years old at the time, and I can remember it was like it was yesterday. And I realized at that moment, if I stayed in that relationship, he was going to think that's normal behavior. So unfortunately, it's sad to say, I didn't even leave for myself. I left for my son, and I have no regrets.
I guess not.
Latino community, a lot of the men are struggling because, they are trying to figure out going from that macho attitude into a world now where that's not acceptable. So they're struggling.
The matriarchal uprising, if you will, or at least the call for a greater matriarchal leadership paradigm or protocol is amongst us everywhere. We see it in so many different cultures, and it sounds like the Cherokee Nation has had that the whole time.
Right.
Primarily a matriarchal culture the whole time.
Right. It was, pre-European, we were a matriarchal society. Now, once, they came over and, took over, then it changed. And I'll give you a quick example. For women in Cherokee culture, they were the ones that controlled the money. And so when the Europeans first came over, the Cherokee women would go and meet with the traders, the people that that traded goods. And the men would say, no, we don't want to meet with you. Go send your men. And the women were like, what? They didn't understand that because they were the ones that controlled the economy. And so then it shifted, and unfortunately it changed. We were influenced a lot. And then a lot of the Native Americans took on the dominant culture and the dominant culture values. So I feel like now we're going back to our original teachings and our original ways. And there's a lot of historical trauma in most Native Americans because of the fact that, we did go through genocide. And that's why you have high rates of alcoholism. In the Native American culture, 50% of the women are going to be either physically or sexually abused. 1 out of 2. And again, that's because we have not yet, as a group of people, worked through a lot of that historical trauma from what's happened to us. But I feel like we're now coming out of it slowly. But as you know, Dr. Fred, change takes time. And that's why I spend so much time with the young people, because I think the future looks bright.
Did you just say the future looks bright?
Yes, I did. And I believe it.
It's just amazing. So, and I really get that. Riding around with you, I can see where the future isn't bleak. It's just what we're going through. It's part of the cycle. It's spirit driven. It's the return of the feminine energy, or the rebalancing or reharmonizing of all of life. It's the status of really being an inspiration, of being authentic, of being in integrity. And that we all get to do that right now. And we get to do it, like all of us get to be leaders, and we get to do so with humility. And if all that's so, then yes, of course the future is bright. Of course it is. Here comes the spring, here comes the next season. Here comes the rebirth of what it means to be alive, and maybe bringing back some of the things that have been hidden for decades or centuries that need to return back to our life. What do you say about that?
Dr. Fred, I just say, put the women in charge and everything will be fine.
Yeah, I figured you might say that.
I'm teasing.
Yeah, I really saw that, and I was like, I can't really ask her that question, so I'm just going to wait until she says the answer, and then I can point a note at that.
No. Again, it's not about one or the other. It's about, harmony. My personal perception, I've also seen a shift in a lot of the men, especially the younger men. The younger men are more supportive of women. The younger generation, they're more open, even with people, with sexuality. They don't have the need for categories like we do. They're just very open. So I feel like, and then if you really look at society and the business world in general, who's the driver? The young people are making corporations more socially responsible. They're holding these companies accountable, and they're using the power of their dollar to spend their dollar in companies that are socially responsible. So the shift is being driven by the young people, women, and a lot of the men too that are coming on board. I mean, look at what we've been through in the last year with George Floyd. I mean, now everybody in the corporate boardrooms are having the discussion of diversity, which didn't exist before.
Right.
So a lot of good things are happening.
Right.
We just got to get through this, transition period, but I think it's going to be all good.
Awesome. Cynthia, how can people keep in touch with you? You are so inspiring, and you're such a great teacher, and you have this spirit that's very contagious, and you're the lion mother after all. How can people keep in touch with you at this point?
Well, easy. You can visit my website, and it's my name, www.cynthia, Cynthia, I use my middle initial M, CynthiaMRuiz.com. That's CynthiaMRuiz.com. That's my website. You can visit me there. I'm also all over social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, Cynthia M. Ruiz.
Awesome. That's really great. Well, it has been a deep pleasure. And, I love that you're a writer. Then there's like other things in your bio that we didn't even address. And that's just in your bio. So I really get, you have your toenails in so many different areas. And then you walk around with the smile that emanates right here, even though we're not looking at each other. So I truly appreciate who you are as a human. I think that our friend Roselle is very lucky to know you and pretty astute to put us together on this podcast. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for showing us a little bit of how, what works to be a spectacular, to be extraordinary as you are and to somehow just continue walking like you have an extraordinary life and then you deliver the goods. And I truly appreciate that. And I know I'm speaking for all of our listeners. So thank you, Cynthia Ruiz.
Dr. Fred, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, there you go, everyone. I mean, wow, right? I just am a lucky man. I like doing this podcast. I get to meet some of the most spectacular people in the world. And Cynthia Ruiz is part of that group now. And so, Cynthia, let's stay together. We might have some work that we could do together. I look forward to working with you and playing with you. Thank you for coming on Welcome to Humanity. And those of you who are here, thank you for listening. Wasn't that great? Remember, really, inspiration is right here to be had. And tomorrow's world is bright. Like there's a way to look at this that isn't so freaky, that has tomorrow's world being bright. And I now am caught up with that. So I appreciate that from Cynthia as well. And for all of you, welcome to humanity. What a ride, right? We'll catch you on the next side. Bye for now, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Hey, welcome to Humanity family. It's Ryan Levesque here, co-producer of the show. I truly hope you enjoyed Dr. Fred's in-depth conversation today. If you did, and if the conversations we share each week are making a difference for you, could you please take just a moment to leave a rating and a short review on Apple Podcasts? Your enthusiastic review helps new listeners discover the show. Your support here really does make a difference. I'd also like to invite you to reach out to a friend or two who would appreciate today's episode. Maybe shoot them a quick text or email, or maybe pick up the phone and invite them to subscribe to the Welcome to Humanity podcast so they can be enriched from the discovery of amazing ideas and insights each week. As always, you can find past episodes along with the complete show notes and links at welcometohumanity.net/podcast. If you'd like to explore how working one-on-one with Dr. Fred can help you break through whatever challenges you might be facing with your mental health or well-being, leading to new levels of freedom and vitality, I invite you to reach out to us directly by emailing Dr. Fred at welcometohumanity.net. That's DRFRED at welcometohumanity.net. Thanks so much for listening, and keep an ear out for another captivating conversation next week. Have a beautiful day, a beautiful week, and indeed, a beautiful life. Welcome to Humanity.